Bucsay Balázs fog nektek előadni. Balázs az már nagy öregje a Hacktivity-nek, többször adott elő, illetve többször csináltunk Wargame-et, meg Capture the Flag programot, és ezeket Balázs sorra megnyerte. Úgyhogy azt gondolom, hogy egy nagyon nagy szaktudású emberrel van dolgunk. Illetve amire nagyon büszkék lehetünk itt Magyarországon, hogy idén is lesz Cyber Olympics, ugye ez egy világ méretű etikus hacker verseny, és Balázsék kijutottak rá, Miamiba lesz jövőre a döntő, és Balázs tagja a Gulás nevű csapatnak, és ők fogják képviselni Magyarországot, és én egy nagyobb összeget rám mernék tenni, hogy az első 3-ba fognak végezni. Úgyhogy fogadjátok sok szeretettel Balázs, tiéd a pálya.
Köszönöm szépen. Ezt sajnos egy picit ki kell javítsam, mert a másik csapatban vagyunk, illetve vagyok, a PR Auditorsba, és 2 magyar csapat jutott ki, a másik pedig a Gulás. De szerintem ez nem fontos, a fontos az, hogy 2 magyar csapat jutott ki, az összesen 2 kijutó európai csapatból. Amit rólam tudni kell, hogy ez a 3. előadásom itt a Hacktivity-n, ezúttal is nagyon szépen köszönöm. A Paypass sebezhetőségeiről fogok előadni. A Paypass a MasterCard tulajdona, ez egy technológia, amit arra használunk, hogy érintésmentesen a bankkártyánkkal tudjunk fizetni, ugyanúgy, mint hogyha mágnescsíkkal, illetve chipkártyával fizetnénk, csak ez érintésmentes. Amit tudni kell még rólam, hogy jelenleg már nem a PR Audit alkalmaz, viszont ezt a kutatást, amit végeztem, és kihozta ezt eredménynek, ami ez az előadás, ezt az ő idejükben, illetve abban a munkaidőben kutattam ki, amikor még a PR Auditnál dolgoztam. Azóta a különböző okok miatt váltottam munkahelyet, de a PR Auditot nagyon szeretem, és nagyon örülök, hogy az ő nevükben adhatok elő. Illetve most már a Vodafone-nak dolgozok, a VOCH-nak pontosabban. Ezen felül, amit még meg kell, hogy jegyezzek, mielőtt elkezdem, az az, hogy a MasterCard 2 hete körülbelül megkeresett, mivel, mint említettem, a Paypass az a MasterCardnak a tulajdona, hogy mégis miről fog szólni ez az előadás. Az előadás az olyan szinten nem tartalmaz újdonságot, amiről nem tudott a MasterCard előtte. Ez már elég régóta ismert sebezhetőség. A különbség az a kivitelezésben van, ami abban különbözik, hogy még eddig, illetve a felfedezéséig ennek a sebezhetőségnek commercial, illetve üzleti célokra használt eszközökkel használták ezt a sebezhetőséget, vagyis szereztek egy Paypass vagy valami hasonló terminált. Addig nekem sikerült ezt az egészet megvalósítanom open source toolokkal. Ezen kívül csak az érdekesség kedvéért egy Raspberry Pi-t fogok használni az egészhez. Mint látjátok, ez egy elég kicsi eszköz, ami akár egy zsebben is elfér. Energiaforrásnak egy elemet, illetve nem tudom, hogy hányan lehet, de lehet használni hozzá, ezt meg kell nézni.
Well, the point is that you can operate that the same way as well. I also have an NFT reader with a chip card, which you need to address. Once you address that properly, then we can send data to the NFC card. This is what I wanted to tell you briefly. Now, with MasterCard, I told them that I was going to say the facts, and then you can decide whether this technology is vulnerable or trustworthy. I'm not really encouraging you not to use it, because there is a trustworthy risk management there. I have certain doubts, but this is just an opinion. Just a sec. Yeah. And then I'm going to plug it in, because it is small, but it's slow as well at the same time. So we need to boot it first, so that we won't have to suffer later. Give me a minute, okay? Okay, so 2 sentences I wanted to say. One is from paypass.com, which describes what I just said, namely that it belongs to MasterCard and what it can be used. It is a touch-free payment, and the other one comes from paypass.hu, why this is secure. It's worth reading it, but it says that this is secure because you don't have to hand it over to others, therefore they cannot scan, your account number and all your particulars, and it cannot be eavesdropped, intercepted rather, because there are state-of-the-art solutions implemented in the card. Well, we will see what that means. Now, this presentation is something that I already held in private circles for private audience, and I didn't go for this video then. I would like to leave it to you that you can download this presentation and the video later on. I'm not going to waste time with that, but what it says is that in the UK, this Paypass technology was introduced earlier. They also went for the vulnerabilities, and they found vulnerabilities, and there was a scandal with the Barclays Bank, for example, and then they made certain changes concerning the use and also the structure of the card. Now the history, this is the history, I'm not going to skip that. It was first in a novel that it was introduced. In that novel, they depicted the future as a vision, and it was then there where the idea of the bank card happened. And then they made the first version, which was the paper-based, the check, which was easy to forge or to falsify. And then the Bank America card was the first one in 1958. It hit the market. There are a lot of standards that I have come across during the course of this research. I had never dealt with banking payment issues. Anyway, issue 7810 describes what a card should look like. Sorry, ISO 7810 is a standard describing what it should look like, and of course it also tells you that the first numbers are the first digits are identifying the bank. Then there is an error checking. There are error checking digits and so forth. And then this is the zero generation cards. There was only a number, a name, and the expiry. And then generation one was the magnetic strip cards, magnetic stripe cards, and then later on they came with the ATM and the chip card solutions. There are two standards. One is the 7811 standard, which tells you how you can physically read and write those cards, and 7813, which describes what sort of structures and how the data can be recorded on the magnetic cards. Track 1, 2, 3. There are different data structures in the different tracks and different data, not only different data structures. Track 3 is the most state-of-the-art, but most of the banks are using track 1 or track 1, 2 together. This is why this is what is on your bank cards as well. This is easy to read. You just need a couple of 10 euros of tools to read and write these. Anyway, you can for 20,000 forints, which is like 80 euros, you can already buy such a device with which you can read and write the bank card. Next generation was the chip card. This was quite extensively used, not only for bank cards, but in other applications or other means as well. Here, again, there's a standard, as you can see, written there, what the different parts of the chip are responsible for, what they do, and the RPDU, the APDUs. APDUs are commands that you can send to the card, and also there's a standard which determines what sort of error codes do come back. This is how you can communicate with the card. So there is a protocol that determines the whole communication. Now, if you have a chip card reader, then what we can say is that the card has an own communication system, which is fully separated from the world. And then if you put this into a reader, then it will be it will get some supply, energy supply, then it will boot up, and this is how you can communicate with the cards. Now, if those codes or keys are not accessible, then you can call, then you can use APIs to call different functions of the card. This is good because it's difficult to copy, difficult to duplicate, and difficult to steal money, of course. This was quite a smart step of banks and card issuers to come up with this solution, I mean the chip. Now, what you also need to know is that Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, they just sat together and they came up with a new solution, because they said, okay, it's good that we have bank cards, but we should try to make the system more uniform, and this is the EMV that they came up with. This is a standard covering bank cards and bank card readers. There are 4 different books on that topic. ISO 7816 is the standard that deals with this. So with a chip card, you can read the card and you can write the card as any other chip card. Now, you also need to know that this EMV gives you a basic structure how you need to communicate with the card. However, this could be extended. So any of the issuers could add their own information and add their own apps, their own applications for the card, which are obviously not public. It is just the reader that they use, their own readers that are made compatible with the cards. Only these readers know how these apps work. Of course, you can find this out, but it's not an easy thing. As I said, this is quite a closed system. As I mentioned, this is quite difficult to copy. What is good here is that we can store keys on the card. Like, for example, we can sign the transactions with these secret keys. We can authenticate the transactions in this way, even if there is no online connection with the bank. So we can be sure that no one's going to steal our money. Now, challenge-based authentication is the one that it has, but this has been created in such a way, as all other technologies, that there are vulnerabilities as well. And it was just recently, 1.5 years ago or so, in the UK, a new technique hit the surface, which says that relay attacks could be used, and the relay attack looks as follows. I don't know to what extent this will be readable. Anyway, the situation is as follows. We have Alice, who is an innocent customer who would like to pay with the bank card. She inserts the card into the slot, the terminal, which is connected to Bob's machine, and Bob's machine is connected to Carol's machine, and Carol would like to buy a diamond, just to follow the example in the picture, in a jewelry store. But one of the first customer wants to pay $20, the other customer wants to pay $2,000. Now this is a difference. And then the way this is done, Bob's and Carol's computer, so Bob sends the information to Carol. The information that is received by the terminal, and then the other terminal is going to get the same information. It is going to respond, and that is going to be sent back. So the whole transaction seamlessly is going to happen, and Alice will only realize that she had paid $2,000 instead of $20. Now, this is not an easy attack. This is the circuit that was designed for that. There is a modified card which is then connected to the circuit, and then this is inserted into the terminal, and this is how it works. So this is the point of this relay attack. And now we get to the point which is the RFID, radio frequency identification. Now, what the purpose this serves is that you have 2 types of tag, the active tag and the passive tag. The active one has an energy supply, and then this can energize the passive tag, which has no indigenous energy supply. So we have a bank card, for example, which is RFID based, or that could be an access card, whatever card you have, and it has no energy source supply. But when you touch it or approach it to the reader, that is going to energize it, boot it up, as if it was a chip card. So it would boot up the operational system and the op system, and then there's going to be a communication between the card and the reader through radio frequency. Now, this is something which has been around for a while. It's been used extensively. First, they put chips into animals, implanted chips into animals in order to identify animals, both in agriculture or your pets. You know, your dog could be chipped, and then also access control works the same way. Now, what you need to know of RFID is that it is quite a wide spectrum. There are a lot of standards. One is NFC, the near field communications. 13.56 megahertz is the frequency. RFID uses 125 kilohertz or even higher kilohertz, higher frequencies. So this is why I said this is just a trench of it. And the whole NFC is based on ISO 14443, and there are quite a number of cards in use, like the MyFair cards. Anyone who went to London knows what the Oyster card is. The British, you can use it in the on the London underground system, the metro. You can credit the card and then use the card. This MetaPay cards, that's also well known. This is what you use at the Sziget Festival in Hungary and the Volt Festival. This is a MyFair card. There's MyFair DeskFire card as well, which is a newer version thereof. And NFC is also used for all of the newly developed, the newly issued passports. They're also using NFCs. And Paypass is also using NFC, the Near Field Communication Standard. What matters, in addition to what I've said, is that in the standard, you have a certain distance determined, the distance that the card needs to approach the reader in order to be able to communicate. This is 4 to 10 centimeters, so it's less than a foot. The MyFair card was broken in 2007. This has been widely publicized, but it was not that easy to do so. And then Oyster card was broken in London. This triggered a major scandal because Tokyo was using the same system and the same protocol. Anyway, although people did not use it to free ride the metro, but still it got a lot of wide attention. BKV, the Hungarian, the Budapest mass transportation company, is also going to get introduce this system. Then in 2007 they announced that they were able to clone the passports, and it was interesting because someone went to the airport with a passport that had Elvis Presley's picture and particulars in the passport. So there were certain public readers that could be used to verify that.
MyFair DeskFire has been exploited, compromised in 2011. I didn't see too many publications about this, but I can imagine it did happen. MetaPay card, festival card, I think is definitely something that jogs your fantasies at all the Hungarian festivals. If it's vulnerable or not, well, I leave it up to you. I do have my opinion about its vulnerability. Let's hope it is not vulnerable. Paypass, that is what we are talking about here today, and Google Wallet, which is perhaps a song for the future, something to do with the future, almost built on Paypass, based on Paypass technology. How do we know that we have a Paypass card? And this is where I have to say, the reason I'm talking about Paypass, MasterCard asked me, because in Hungary it is only Paypass that is actually available. Visa has the PayWave, which is precisely the same as Paypass. However, I've not had the chance to test it, so I can't speak about it. If you take your card out and you're not sure, and if you see the Paypass logo or this sign, it's sure that your card is Paypass. I'd like to ask if you have a Paypass card. Well, I think a lot of people are lying because there's many more people who have a Paypass card. But of course, keep it to yourselves, if you like. All those who don't have one, within the next 5 years, I can tell you, you will have one. MasterCard is actually signing contracts with agreements with banks. They're really pushing this technology continuously, and we will not have a say. Most probably, if we want it, because we always want it, we will not have a say in what kind of a card we'll be getting. If you, it's very easy to get the chip out. You actually just have to cut it out, or you just have to break that part of the card. The rest will function, but I'm not sure it's the best solution. Why are they introducing it? They are introducing it because the card issuers, MasterCard and all the others, like it best if we use the bank card as much as possible and they get a share. How can you force people to use it as much as possible if it's simpler to use instead of cash? People like cash because it is much faster than the bank card. And if I can pay without a touch, and if I don't actually have to enter a PIN code, I don't actually have to sign, then it is the fastest payment method. Paypass, you have to know that it is NFC based, which means it's ISO 14443 compliant. It is EMV also, and there's two types. The Max Stripe card and the M-chip card. M-chip I won't discuss. It is less interesting for us. Most probably it is more safer, because it works the same way like a chip card. It has encryption, everything that you can imagine, for us to actually authenticate our transaction. And then there is the Max Stripe. It is no coincidence because it has the same data like on a magnetic card, and it works the very same way when it comes to payment. There's two kinds of Paypass readers we see in books, in shops. One is the embedded reader, when you have the reader, the magnetic card swiper, and the much more practical one that they like in so many places, the external reader, where it really just only reads Paypass. You have linked it to the terminal with a USB, some sort of a software. The external reader, you touch your card to it. It reads the data it needs to, which is otherwise on the magnetic card, similar format. It sends to the POS terminal, and the POS terminal actually behaves like a magnetic card and actually just remembers that this data came from a Paypass. We came from a safe technology. We are doing precisely the same thing. We are using the magnetic card that we know is not safe. That is the link from where I actually downloaded it. That is two kinds of Paypass technologies, the M-chip and the Max Stripe, and the differences between them. What I have to tell you is that the magnetic card has the CVC1 code, which is used for transaction authentication. The CVC2 is the one that you know on the back side next to the stripe where you sign. That is needed for internet payment. You add your name, your card number, issuing bank if it's needed, expiry date, and the CVV. And if either of the data don't fit, you can't pay. And there are places, I've heard like Amazon, where they don't ask for the CVV. Or when I was dealing with this, I traveled by train a lot. For example, the Hungarian railways, internet-based ticket sales goes to the OTP bank, and I actually entered 3 9s and it let me through. When I entered 3 zeros, it let me through. They have changed it in the recent times. And the reason I started telling you the CVC is because Paypass in the standard there is such a thing as a CVC3. Instead of CVC 1 is a CVV3. It's three. It can be three values. One is the static one. It's always the same. The second one is dynamic, and I think there are two kinds of dynamics. One is there is 2 added for every transaction. You can imagine what the third time it's going to be, and in some cases, some sort of a random number is used that is always renewed. That could be the secure one. And what do we have on the card? Since it does use EMV, you can list everything as if it was a chip card. It uses CVC3. MasterCard that the most secure one would be to generate a random number, and for every single payment it should change. The banks are not actually obliged to adhere to this. I read the card, for example, that I have here, but I've read 2 other bank cards and I did not see any difference. Perhaps I did not look well enough. It does need more research. I would not be surprised if it was static. Apart from this, you also have the cardholder's entire name, the name of the bank card, and also the expiry date, the transaction counter and the service number, and quite a few other data. If you obtain these without CVV, we can use it in a few places. For example, and the OTP Hungarian bank you can't, but most probably Amazon and numerous others will allow the usage of the card. So if we have the name, we have the card number, we can already pay with it. I've already told you about the MaxStripe transaction, which reaches the card, sends it to the terminal, and it actually just notes that it was not a chip card, and then it otherwise adds that it's okay, you can pay. And I have a touch tag reader here, I have a Raspberry Pi, and I have a festival card. It was a Pálinka festival payment card. Very useful, because they were just distributing it at the Pálinka festival. So probably when they had this pilot project, they were distributing these to really help people test the use of this card. We soon have to start with the demo. When I started dealing with it, I was quite new in this whole RFID, NFC technology, and I knew the basic tools, and I really did suffer a lot, I can tell you. Open source tools, well, we can say they're good approach, but they're absolutely not commercial. It's until you don't understand them, you are just completely unable to actually establish a test environment which is actually functional. When the NFC really came into being and became publicly known, then the Linux literally was sometime around version 1.0, 2.0, and the new completely rewritten versions were really not even close to being compatible with all tools. So I had a lot of problems in establishing a test environment that was actually functional. I tried it on OS X, I tried on all sorts of other Linux distributions. If it was MacBook, for example, my MacBook is completely busted because of this. And then I asked my colleague at PR Audit to help, and he was using FreeBSD. So all the packages precisely were, everything was compatible with everything. So I just copied the package versions. I installed them for myself, and now it works. I couldn't know anything. I didn't know anything about the Paypass card, Now, in retrospect, it was really, really simple. I think every single detail was there in front of me, but when you're looking for it, well, that is a time when you don't really find it.
Mint ahogy említettem, rengeteget foglalkoztam azzal, hogy olvasgattam ezeket a standardokat.
I really did a lot of reading these standards, a lot of Google. That's why there's so many standards, because in this presentation, because these also form part of the story, but also because, of course, I didn't read every single standard, but I really did suffer with each of them to understand them all. I tried all other tools using the existing NFC lib. Some of them were misleading, some of them absolutely didn't work, and I really read how it actually functioned. Then I started reading how the reader functioned, how you have to address things down to the bit, down to the byte. Then I found the solution. And then the whole thing opened up. All of a sudden the card answered. You can imagine how happy I was. I showed everyone in the office. They didn't really appreciate it. And I'm not surprised. It was basically just zeros and hexadecimals on the screen. But for me, that was a lot. I mean, it was actually something, it was not an error code. Others said, well, okay, what's the big deal? And in the end, what I found, because it uses EMV, the easiest one is to use an existing tool and we modify it, because you don't have to read through 4 books and reprogram it if someone has already done it. So basically I took the Java EMV reader. It took quite a few weeks. I was trying, let's say I was making attempts in Lua. Then I realized that Java, it was easier to modify the Java EMV reader, modifying it in such a way that it's the card itself that should be addressed and not the... a colleague of mine said that he has a one version better reader where it's not the chip that is addressed by the PCS-CD, but it's the card itself. So you don't have to encapsulate the packages, it sends it straight to the card. So all the work that I did is completely useless, because if I'd have bought a newer reader, that I didn't, for evident reasons, I would have long been ready with the whole project. So I modified the Java EMV reader. I will show you how. It runs precisely as if we were reading a chip card. The only difference is that while the chip reader you have to stick it into a reader, this you only have to put it near to the reader. As I said, Stripe functions like a magnetic card. I think as I said, this is not something. Basically, the novelty of this presentation is that I only used open source tools. A whole lot of presentations. There were quite a few presentations before, and more are coming out. Old presentations that I've said used commercial tools, whereas later ones really have found out how you can really use relatively cheap tools. And perhaps what is by far the most interesting is that the PCI DSS standard says that it should be across open public networks. Cardholder data can only be transmitted if that channel is encrypted, and the NFC is not encrypted. And so now the demo. Hopefully I'll show you the demo. It's quite not readable, is it?
Nagyjából nem, de kettő közben minden. Na, akkor ezt így. Jó. Indítunk egy PCR CD-t, itt látszik, hogy felismerte a kártyát, ott van a kártya ATR-re, Answer Reset. Most fut a PCR CD, ezen keresztül tudunk kommunikálni a kártyával, illetve el kell lépni ebbe a könyvtárba, és elindítani a Java alkalmazást, amiből kettőt csináltam. Az egyik a cenzúrázott, a másik pedig amikor megmutatja az egészet. Mielőtt elindítom, megmutatom, itt a kártya, rárakom az olvasóra, és nyomok egy Entert. És mivel ez egy ARM-based processzor, egy kicsi órajelen fut, kicsi teljesítménnyel, és Jávát futtatok rajta, ezért 2 perc még lefut, úgy normálisan. Úgyhogy eddig szerintem az lenne a következő lépés, hogy mivel 2 variációja van ennek a programnak, a teljes, amikor megmutatja a teljes bankszámlaszámot, illetve nevet, illetve a másik, amikor kicenzúrázza, direkt átírtam X-ekkel, hogy tudjak demózni. Meg szeretnék kérni valakit, aki vállalkozó kedvű, hogy hozza ide a kártyáját, hogyha meri. A program az nem loggol semmit. Át is küldöm neki szívesen utána, hogyha szeretné.
The program is not logging anything.
Itt összegzi a dolgokat. Hogyha szeretné, akkor szívesen megmutatom, hogy nem csak ezzel a kártyával.
So if someone could bring their card out, the program is not logging anything. I tried it with 2 different banks and it worked.
Elég sok mindent elküld neki, válaszokat.
You can see that it's sending quite a lot of things. It's waiting for the responses.
Szóval van vállalkozó.
Anyone willing to surrender their card? Are you sure?
Ráragasztottad. Ez a matrica fajta.
This is the sticker part, sticker kind of a Paypass.
Kb. 3 perc.
I'll give this back to you in a sec.
Ahogy látjátok, elég kellemes. Szerintem ez a legérdekesebb rész, hogyha gondoljátok, majd akkor később megmutatom a többit is. A lényeg az, hogy rajta van ott a PON, a primary.
What you can see that you have the primary account number, a few other things.
Ez ami rá van írva a kártyára.
This is what is on the card. Expire is also there.
Ott van.
It's there actually. Application effective date, issue, expiration date 2014, 30th of April, 0414 on the card.
Mivel az Egyesült Királyság,
And because in the United Kingdom,
a Barclay miatt kirobbant,
because of Barclays, they had this scandal,
ezért módosítottak a dolgokon.
so they amended the system, they modified the system.
Mondom, akkor a cenzúrázottak. Módosítottak a dolgokon.
Basically, they amended the system because they were saying that it was good if they would use the CVV3, and also they also eradicated the name from the card. The name is not on this card and on the other one. Despite this, beside this, you actually have instead expiry and you have the card number. And I'll tell you what you can do later on. I can tell you how nicely it runs. It's going to be one of those exceptions, is it? His phone is ringing. They're calling him from the bank. It's a demo effect. When you demo it, it doesn't work. Most probably this is some sort of an exception card. What I don't really understand is what it wrote at the end, the very bottom. Not finding the application when it should not be looking for the application. Any other person. Is it the same sticker thing?
Remélem a PCSCD az közben nem fagy le, mivel az is open source-tól, ez ilyen feature.
I hope. I hope this one doesn't freeze.
Na. Egyébként. Hoppá, ott már ott volt, hogy MasterCard.
It did say MasterCard. Data galore, and it stops here. It's important that it stops here, it's quite good. Integral authenticate, it would be a feature. It would be worth looking into in EMV. These are the characteristics graphs where you can actually sign transactions, and this is what is missing from MaxStripe. It does not have, people cannot sign their transactions, they cannot authenticate their transactions. I'll talk about this soon. I just want to demo you that it really is working. I actually measured that it runs for 2 minutes. I knew that this was going to be the toughest part. We have to wait 2 minutes. I'll go back soon. I'll go back. I have seen presentations where basically they read the most important data that they needed for payment, they put it on a magnetic card, and they used that to pay with. But there's one stumbling block. If you paid 3 times with the same card, the bank stopped it because the CVV didn't change. The solution to this was that they used the card 3 or 4 times, the CVV always changed, and in that order he actually wrote it out on the magnetic card, and then it was good. Paypass cards allow 1 to 5 payments in a series. The next one has to be a chip card payment, and then you can again pay with until 5,000 forints. It doesn't ask for a PIN code, it doesn't ask for a signature if we pay under that. And if you think about it, it's relatively difficult to exploit, because I don't think anyone is going to be rich from stealing 15,000. I mean, to always obtain the numbers, the card numbers, this presentation is not how to misuse this. I just want to open eyes to how technology that you carry around in your pocket actually functions, how you can exploit it, and what you have to be attentive to. As I've told you, there are net payment pages on the internet where they don't even ask for your CVC. Before, we could pay with the relay attack that I told you about that happened that they did in the United Kingdom. It works with Paypass also. There are descriptions about this. Best part is that it works with Google Wallet also. I also found presentations where the basis was 4-10 centimeters for the NFC and Paypass. However, certain size antenna used, they also managed to increase this distance. The active attack is where they are communicating with the card. They increase the distance 50-fold, so to a meter and a half. And they also had a passive attack when they were not communicating with the card. The person is paying, and they are actually just snooping into it. They increased that to 500-fold, so from 15 meters distance. I'm not good in electro, and all those who can build and design such an antenna, I'm sure, can tell you how this works and how this is feasible. I'm soon finishing. I think it's very easy to emulate Paypass cards. Within 5 years, everyone is going to have such cards. Google Wallet uses the very same technology. The MagStripe is a bit better, perhaps. It's because you can only use it, you can only pay with it if the telephone is unlocked. If it's standby and we are in our pocket, even if they go with the reader to it, you cannot read it. Of course, if you have any questions, let's see where we are. It did work with this card. So that was really, that Raiffeisen was really an exception. I'm not saying that because it was an exception, it was also secure. As you can see, primary account number, of course I X'd out the card number, owner, is it the same number? At least the first digit? 554203. That concludes my presentation. I knew it wouldn't work. There wouldn't be time if there's any questions. I hope it was so good that everyone understood everything. I don't know, we don't know what they're asking without microphone. You should ask MasterCard. It seems there are such cards. The problem with them is that they are reverse compatible. Until the MagStripe technology is not eradicated from this completely, until then you will always be able to read all these data. Any other questions?
Köszönöm szépen, nyugodtan keressetek meg utána.